Hi friends, welcome back. Alive in Higher Consciousness, here we are. And you'll notice my really groovy background. I'm sitting in my truck and I am behind on where I wanted to be recording videos. I've had a lot of great ideas for videos and I'm super excited to record them. And then I keep trying to find good places to do recording and I keep being thwarted by various things. I won't bore you with the details. And I came up here, this great place in the woods, and then it's super windy and looks like it's going to start raining again. It was like raining all day yesterday, so I didn't get anything recorded. And I don't have service up here, so I can't check the forecast. And I don't want to make another video in a really windy place because I felt bad about. There's at least one like that. Sorry. I don't want to do more of those because that's distracting. So here we are. I was kind of doing some rehearsing in my truck, Lakshman here, and I think some cool analogies were coming through me, and I just thought, I'm just going to record this video and see what we've got. And this is a topic that is so important right now. It's so important to delve into and to explore and to bring more understanding and shed more light on. And I feel very passionate about it, in case you couldn't tell. And so I'm going to jump right in and just make this video. So here we go. Masculine and feminine energy. And from this point on, I probably won't use those terms very much. Here's why. Because in our culture, what I find is it's very challenging to not identify. When we hear masculine energy, we think men, and when we hear feminine energy, we think women. And the reality is we are souls. Our true nature is we are souls. We're these beings of light, of wholeness, and we have come into a realm of duality. The realm of creation is duality, as I've touched on in previous videos. And in duality, everything is in opposites, and that's what gives structure to the universe. That's what allows us to differentiate things. And duality is in, by necessity, equal measure. It's just like the waves on an ocean. And I drew you a picture. Let me see if I can get this. You see that? So this is a wave on the ocean. So here's the ocean when it's perfectly calm. When it's perfectly calm and still. There's sea level. Is perfectly even, straight. Duality is this. The wave comes up, but then half of the wave has to go down equally because there's not more water. You don't just add more water on to create a wave. You have to draw the water out. So half of the wave is below level, the other half is above. Is one half better than the other half? No, of course it isn't. Because, look, they're the same thing. Another apt expression is two sides of the same coin. Because, of course, you can't take away just one side of a coin. There's always a side to it. You take away all of it, and then there's no more coin left. I think that's self-evident. But it's the same thing with masculine and feminine energy. That's one of the ways the universe was created. There are these two opposing poles of energy. And they are in equal balance. And another term that doesn't really work very well, but some analogies with it work well, are positive and negative. We hear those terms sometimes. And the thing is, in English, negative can also mean bad. And so that makes it kind of an unfortunate analogy to use. Because, of course, like with a battery, it has a positive and a negative pole. Is the negative pole worse than the positive pole? Of course not. They need both poles. And here's the really interesting thing. The negative pole of the battery actually has all the extra electrons because electrons have the negative charge. And that's what electricity is, just electrons flowing in a circuit or whatever. So in our mind, we think positive has more of. But actually it just has the charge, the electrical charge, the potential of positive, and the negative pole has the negative potential, but it actually has the surplus of the stuff, the actual things. The electrons are all in the negative side. and they flow to the positive side, but they need a place to flow to. So both sides of the battery are equally important. So too with masculine and feminine energy. So I try to not use that terminology. The terminology I do like to use is, for one, yin and yang. When they're together, my understanding is that symbol is actually called Tai Chi. Tai Chi is the balance of those two opposing energies. It's made up of the two halves, yin being the feminine or the predominantly black part, and yang being the masculine or predominantly white part of the symbol, Tai Chi. So I like to use that terminology because we don't equate either of those words with bad in English, but they're increasingly common, yin and yang. Another terminology I like to use is inward and outward, because again, there's no better or worse there. There's no other connotation. They're just different. Outward is what we would call the masculine expression of energy, and inward is the feminine expression of energy. There's an equal movement of energy in both of those, and they're equally important. We need both to grow on the spiritual path. But again, they work together and they're in balance. And it's interesting, you can see this readily in simply male and female bodies. Male bodies are special bits, are outward, females are inward, physical manifestation of the energy, playing out at that level too. With both of the energies, masculine and feminine, there is an uplifted form and then a downward flowing form. The uplifted form flowing up to the higher centers in the spine, flowing up toward truth, toward wholeness. When that energy is directed toward enlightenment, it has particular qualities, and when those qualities are directed downward or directed selfishly towards self-interest, they have particular qualities also. So the feminine energy, when it's uplifted, flowing toward wholeness, we see that reflected in, I always think of when I see mother chickens with their little chicks, and these little chicks, they're so helpless and so tiny, and the mother is so sweet. Normally chickens are out there kind of squabbling and squawking and, fussing and pecking and, being kind of gnarly, but they're so sweet and tender, and they'll find some food and they make this little call and call all their little babies, and when there's danger they call them all over and they make sure they get all the little babies under their wing, and it's deeply touching. That's feminine energy uplifted. It's nurturing and caring and making sure everybody's fed, everybody has a home, everybody's loved. When that energy is directed selfishly, it wants to create the home or the nest for itself, not as an act of service. In masculine energy, when that energy is directed upward, when it's flowing nobly, it is in the old sense of the warrior or of a chivalry, someone who's willing to sacrifice themselves for a righteous cause. Whatever it is, they don't need to be. I love the old stories of the Knights of the Round Table. They would go, and anytime they saw any injustice, they would unhesitatingly go and stop it, whatever it took. They would stand up for the downtrodden. That's masculine energy, the willingness to fight, to lay down their life for justice, for truth, for the well-being of all. And to do it again, the mother does it in the same way. The feminine energy, the yin energy, does that also, but it's in more of an inward way. It's the mother she literally feeds the babies from her own body. She offers herself. It's this complete inward offering. The yang energy, the outward energy, goes out and it's willing to sacrifice its physical body. And again, beings with male and or female bodies express both of these energies at different times. There may come a time when a predator comes and the mother will go and offer herself, will try to fight off the predator. She's expressing that masculine energy. It may be, a female body, but that's an expression of the masculine energy, and the father can come and can nurture and be tender and tend to the little ones and the weak ones, and that's an expression of feminine energy, even though it may be a masculine physical form that's channeling that energy. I hope that makes sense. When that masculine energy is directed selfishly, it's doing the same things, but again in a selfish way. It's going out and not protecting others, but conquering for itself. It's getting what it can for itself. And there can be a mixture of both. Like, it can be, well, I'll protect my tribe, I'll sacrifice myself for my tribe, but at the expense of another tribe. If they cross over, into our territory, I'll go out and kill them. And that's not necessarily the most uplifted expression of masculine energy. One story that comes to mind that's a great example of this comes from the life of Jack London, the famous writer, author, and really fascinating person. And he died fairly young. He was about 40. I think he was 40. And his widow wrote a biography of him, and she tells this story where they were building this big, beautiful mansion where they could host people and live as they had wanted to in California. And they were living on this very large ranch they'd accumulated at that point. And the house, the Wolf House, they called it, was nearing completion. And then one night, it was late at night, I believe they saw the flames. Someone had set fire to it. They said it didn't happen by accident. Someone, it was an act of arson. Someone lit it on fire, and they got in their horses, got their wagon, and rushed down there. And Jack rallied all the people, and Charmian, his wife, describes as how he was just, this was his own house and their dream burning to the ground, but he was running around and he was encouraging people and he was trying to keep the spirits light and uplifted and going to get help and making sure everybody was safe and taken care of and that the fire didn't spread and consume the countryside. We're seeing fires in California do every year now. And for several hours, it was this very intense outward expression of energy. And she said he was just, dashing to and fro, talking to people and encouraging them and directing them in what they needed to do. He just immediately took charge of the situation and managed it with levity and with strength. And it was this beautiful expression of masculine energy. And meanwhile, she did what she could, but was also in so much shock that this was happening, and it was such an overwhelming event. But then she said, hours later, the fire was out, everything was under control. I held Jack while he shook like a leaf and wept that so much beauty should be lost. And to me, I love that story because it's such a beautiful and poignant expression of the masculine and feminine energy that, in the one instant, the masculine energy can seem stronger because he's out there helping to put the fire out and directing people and taking control of the situation. But then there comes the time when the masculine energy can't do it anymore. And he just has to collapse and sob because it's just overwhelming. They've lost this huge dream. And he could hold it together during the crisis, but then immediately afterwards, he had to collapse and process his incredible grief at this event. But she was the one. It was the feminine energy that was strong, that endured through the crisis, and she experienced just as much crisis as he did. It was their house. They were building together. But she had the strength to hold him and comfort him when he broke down. And that's just just a poignant example and a beautiful example of how we support each other. We support within ourselves, our masculine and feminine energies work together, and as couples, as partners, all of our energies work together Sometimes let's say in a partnership with a man and a woman, sometimes the woman actually needs to express more masculine energy and vice versa. And it's this beautiful dance when they're working harmoniously and compatible. So that's a very sweet story. So, great story, Jacob. How do I apply this to daily life? How do I use this to raise my vibration? First of all, being aware that that's what's going on within us, because there's so much tension right now between men and women, between these two energies. And we have this oversimplified view of it in the greater culture that I see very commonly is it's about men versus women. And we're coming out of Kali Yuga, out of the Dark Age or the physical age. And for the last few thousand years, masculine energy and negatively oriented masculine energy has held sway over the planet and has subverted feminine energy, all feminine energy. And it's one of the great tragedies of our times, and one of our great calls to action right now is we need to bring the two energies back into balance and to uplift them both. Because the feminine energy has been so downtrodden for so long, I think it's very important to do all that we can, men and women, to uplift feminine energy. And this is why I'm so grateful for the Me Too movement, because I've had female friends over the years have confided in me that they've suffered injustices at the hands of men. And it's one of the most tragic and horrific and heartbreaking facts of our times. And at some point I realized, oh my gosh, almost all of my close female friends have confided those things in me, that happens. And I go about my day-to-day life kind of in shock at how common that is and continues to be, and how desperately that needs to change in this world. And it's hard to know what to do. And I think it's so important that we have outward expressions like Me Too. It's so important that we get these things out of the closet and into the light of day and talk about them and become aware of them, because I believe firmly we can't take our next step spiritually in raising our vibration unless we're very clearly aware exactly where we're standing right now. You can't get direction someplace if you don't have a starting point. So in the same way, we've got to understand where we're at. And it's important for people to speak out, to do the outward things, to share, to connect, to have the Million Women's March that was going on. I was so grateful for that. I'm so glad that that's happening, and that there are these expressions and examples of women standing together in solidarity and with men saying this has to change. And also what we can do, I believe the most powerful thing is to do the work within ourselves, because the outer world is a reflection, is a mirror of what goes on within us, okay? If nothing else from this video, the outer world is a reflection of what goes on within us. It's a mirror. It's a mirror of what happens within us. Remember, we've got masculine and feminine energy within us, and I don't believe there's hardly anybody on the planet right now that is not recovering or has the opportunity to recover from deep wounding on some level that comes down to the struggle between masculine and feminine energy within ourselves. So it's easy to look out into the world and see any number of men in positions of power that have taken advantage of women. And yes, we need to call men out. We need to hold them accountable for their behavior. Absolutely. And we also need to see that we've incarnated at this time when this is the predominant energy struggle on the planet. And I think most of us are drawn here at this time in large part because we have some of those wounds within us. Within me, there's a little boy and a little girl, and they're both hurt and confused in different ways. And it's essential that we have conversations with ourselves and with people that we can confide in safely about what our feelings are, what we're struggling with, where and how we've been wounded. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. There are no right or wrong answers about our pain. It's our own story, and your story is valid, and it deserves to be told, and it deserves to be heard and honored. And I believe that if we could all do that work within us, that all the outward stuff would dissolve immediately. Because like I talked about in a previous video, remember, creation happens from stillness through the causal realm, through the energetic realm, and finally into the physical. And yeah, we're in the physical. We don't all have the capability to just go into the causal realm and fix everything. But we should strive for that. We should always hold that as an ideal and hold that as a possibility and do our best to work inwardly, work with it on the highest vibrational level that we can, while also doing the things in the physical realm that need to be done. As an example, I believe that if we had complete access to the causal realm, to the energetic realm, we could maintain our bodies. We could keep our teeth perfectly clean through our consciousness. That would totally be possible. And I believe that, and I strive for that. I try to hold on to the consciousness of having a body that's glowing in health and wholeness and wellness at all times. And yet I still brush my teeth because I'm not there. I can't keep my teeth clean just with my consciousness yet. But I believe that is possible, and I believe that's the highest way to do it. But until I get there, I've got to brush my teeth because I don't like going to the dentist. So in the same way, yes, we need to meet too. We need to ask each other questions. We need to share our stories. We need to ask people, what's your story? And listen. Just listen. Be there for each other. Hear each other. Recognize if we're shrinking from something that makes us uncomfortable, why? Why are you shrinking from that? What does it stir up in you? What chord does it strike? What fear does it bring up in you? And share that. That's part of your story. And that deserves to be heard. And it deserves to be healed. And it can be healed. Because in truth, you are whole. You are perfect. You are well. You are eternal and blameless and pure in your essence. And the hard work is remembering that and living in that truth always. And that's our job. And I believe by having a deeper understanding of masculine and feminine energy, and another thing is to not get pulled into the outward drama, to not get pulled into us versus them. We've all got to be on the side of truth. That's the only way this is going to work out. We all need to choose love. We need to choose forgiveness. We need to choose peace and harmony. And we need to choose that within ourselves and in those places where, boy, you know what? I'm not ready to forgive them. We need to recognize that and accept that, honor that. It's okay. We do the best that we can every day. We get closer and closer to our goal. Someday we will be able to find forgiveness for people. If for no other reason, ultimately, it heals us to forgive. If we're angry, great. Express your anger for a while and then recognize when it's time to let it go. And recognize how to transmute it into something higher. I'll finish with this story that is from Jim Corbett, he's kind of known as the Tiger Hunter. He's a naturalist and an author, and he grew up in British India and in northern India in the jungle and became a hunter and was an incredibly astute student of the jungle and the natural world and Mother Nature. And hunting was a part of the culture, and he became very, very good at it. And in his later years, he was called upon to hunt man-eating tigers and leopards to save people's lives. And there's one story where there was a tiger that was attacking and killing and eating people for years. And there were thousands of people that lived in this this area of many square miles where this tiger would attack, and they lived in terror day and night for years until Jim Corbett finally shot and killed this tiger. And it was down in a valley, and the people all came down, and they saw this tiger, and they were so excited they wanted to bring it up to the village, and there was a long winding path, but they wanted to bring it straight up this very steep hillside. It was almost a cliff face, this very, very steep hillside. And he said what they did was they all took hold of the cliff with one hand, and they took hold of the person behind them, grabbed onto their belt or their loincloth or their clothing or whatever, and made this human chain going up this very steep hill. And then they passed the body of this tiger up this mountain to the peak, to the village. And to me, that's such a glorious representation of our spiritual journey, that we all need to take a hold as best we can, and to also grab on to the people behind us, to grab on to the people nearest to us to help them in case they should slip. And also transmute the body. The tiger to me represents this fear, this terror, this this entity that had controlled their lives for years, that had them living in fear and contraction, and to transmute that, to lift that up the mountainside, which so often is symbolic of the spiritual journey. And they're literally that tiger in its dead form. At the moment that it was killed, it became transmuted into this symbol of glory and safety and security, and there was so much celebration because finally people felt free again. They could go walk through the jungle, and they could go harvest their crops and not be in terror. And to uplift that energy up to the mountain peak, which always symbolizes the upper chakras and this point between the eyebrows of awakening. And so that's our job on the spiritual path. We hold on with all we've got wherever we are. It doesn't matter how high or how low we are on the mountainside. And Jim Corbett described this, as he said, it looked for all the world like a line of ants transmitting like the body of a small insect as it wound its way up this steep hillside. And he said if at any point this human chain had broken, the loss of life would have been devastating, but it held. And it's just so beautiful. That's what we need to do. We hold on with all we've got, and we also, with our other hand, we hold on to those people around us, and we provide support for them. Everything that we learn, we share, we offer selflessly, generously. And also we transmute the negative energy of fear into something to celebrate, into a communal strength. And we all grow together, and everyone on that human chain was equally important. It didn't matter how high or low they were on the mountain. That doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's just like, it doesn't matter which part of the wave, you're the high part or the low part, it doesn't matter. The wave does not exist without either part. So I hope that's helpful. Blessings on your journey inward, exploring your sacred, divine, masculine and feminine energy within you, finding the balance of the two within, day by day, looking for wholeness, for truth, forgiveness, recognizing those same stories playing out all around you, healing those little children within you, and raising your vibration through that process, and through that, raising the vibration of the whole world. Many thanks for your journey, for tuning in. See you next time.